You are not too sensitive. You are not paranoid. You are not broken. You are too aware. And that awareness, the thing you have spent your entire life trying to manage, hide, or apologize for, is not your weakness. It is the most dangerous thing about you. The problem is that you have been using it wrong. Most people will tell you that awareness is power. They are half right. Unmanaged awareness is a prison, and you have been living in it so long you have started to call it home. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this. He wrote, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes back into you." He was not speaking metaphorically. He was issuing a clinical warning, and no one it applies to more precisely than you. The abyss has been gazing back at you for years. The question is whether you have noticed. You walk into a room and you already know. You know who is performing. You know who is lying. You know who is afraid and covering it with volume. You know which smiles are real and which ones are load-bearing fictions designed to keep a social structure from collapsing. You know all of this within seconds, and you have known it your entire life. And yet, you are exhausted. You are lonely. You are either deeply isolated or surrounded by people who do not actually know you. You have been in relationships where you saw the ending before the middle had started. You have watched betrayals arrive exactly on schedule. You have been right about people repeatedly in ways that brought you no satisfaction whatsoever. This is the paradox you live in. You see everything, and seeing everything has cost you almost everything. You did not develop this awareness because you are special. You developed it because you had to. Somewhere in your history, a home where the atmosphere could turn without warning, a relationship where misreading someone had real consequences, a prolonged situation where safety depended on accuracy. Your nervous system made a calculation. It decided that the most important thing you could do was read the room correctly. Every time, without fail. So it rewired itself. It dedicated resources. It built a threat detection architecture that runs continuously, silently, beneath every conscious thought you have. Like a second mind that never sleeps. Like a wolf that learned to live in a house but never stopped watching the door. That wolf kept you safe. It also never let you rest. And now the original threat is gone, and the wolf is still there, scanning a room that does not require scanning, reading people who are not dangerous, burning fuel on problems that do not exist. You are not aware. You are hypervigilant. And hypervigilance is trauma wearing the mask of intelligence. Here is what the awareness actually costs you. Not in the abstract. In your specific life. Right now, you cannot be present. You are physically in conversations and psychologically 3 moves ahead of them. You are watching the interaction instead of being in it. You are the anthropologist at the dinner table, cataloging behavior, noting inconsistencies, filing data, and somewhere in the background, the actual experience of being alive is passing you by. You cannot trust, not because people are untrustworthy, though some are, but because trust requires tolerance for uncertainty. Trust is the decision to proceed without full information. You do not make that decision. You wait for full information, it never comes, so you never fully trust. And every relationship you have is built on a foundation of managed distance that you call caution and other people call coldness. You cannot be known. This is the one you do not talk about. You are extraordinary at knowing others. You are almost incapable of being known yourself, because being known requires exposure. Exposure requires risk, and your nervous system has classified risk as threat since before you had language for it. So you give people access to the version of you that you have decided is safe to show. And the real version stays behind the glass, watching, always watching. This is not intuition working for you. This is a defense mechanism that has outlived its usefulness, eating you from the inside. The cost of seeing everything is never being able to stop. Now we name the mechanism, because you cannot fight what you have not identified. There is a psychological dynamic that operates specifically against people like you. It is not random, it is not bad luck, it is targeted. And the people who deploy it do so with an accuracy that should disturb you, because they have been doing it to people exactly like you for a very long time. Manipulators do not avoid hyperaware people. They seek them out. Write that down. Absorb it. Let it restructure something in how you understand your own history. Why would a predator seek out the one person who is hardest to deceive? Because breaking someone who cannot be broken is the highest possible demonstration of power. Because the hyperaware person, once their self-trust is successfully undermined, is actually more controllable than someone who never developed strong perceptions in the first place. And because hyperaware people by nature keep their observations private, they are discreet. They do not broadcast what they notice. This makes them ideal targets. They see the game. They do not call it out. And so the game continues. The mechanism has 4 components. Learn them. They are being used on you, or they have been used on you, or they will be used on you. The first is precision gaslighting. Not the crude version, not "that never happened." The sophisticated version. The one that says, "You always see things that aren't there. Your past is making you paranoid. You're too perceptive for your own good." It does not deny your perception. It pathologizes it. It takes the most reliable thing about you and reclassifies it as a symptom. And because you already know your awareness is unusual, because you have already spent years wondering if you see too much, the suggestion lands. It finds the crack that was already there, and it widens it. The second is emotional flooding. Your analytical capability is your armor. Flooding bypasses armor entirely. It does not try to defeat your pattern recognition. It drowns it. When someone generates enough emotional chaos, enough escalation, enough crisis that demands immediate response, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that thinks, goes partially offline. You stop analyzing, you start reacting. And in that window of reaction, you are completely vulnerable. The lion does not fight the crocodile in the water. It waits for land. You are being pulled into the water. The third is social credibility destruction. You are a reliable witness. You notice things. You remember accurately. This makes you dangerous. The countermeasure is to make sure no one believes you before you speak. To seed the environment with the idea that you are unstable, obsessive, too sensitive, unreliable. By the time you report what you have seen, the jury has already been dismissed. You can tell the truth. It will not matter. The fourth is isolation. Your greatest defense is a single trusted person who will confirm what you are seeing. One person. That is all it takes for your perception to become actionable rather than questionable. The mechanism knows this. It removes that person. It creates conflict between you and everyone who would validate your reality. It positions itself as your only reliable source of truth. And then, when the architecture is complete, you are alone inside a manufactured reality, and the door is locked from the outside. This is not paranoia. This is a documented pattern. You have probably lived inside it. The cage was built around you while you were busy noticing the bars. Here is the dark truth. The one that the psychology industry will not tell you because it is bad for business and uncomfortable to say. Your awareness did not protect you. It made you a more valuable target. Every time you stayed silent about what you noticed, you gave the manipulator a safer operating environment. Every time you second-guessed a correct perception because you were afraid of seeming paranoid, you handed over ground. Every time you absorbed someone else's manufactured reality because confronting it felt too costly, you trained yourself to override your own intelligence. You have been more loyal to social comfort than to your own perception, and that loyalty has cost you years. You are also, and hear this clearly, not innocent in the dynamic. Not because you deserved what happened, you did not. But because the hyperaware person, when operating from fear rather than clarity, makes specific choices that perpetuate their own entrapment. You stay too long in situations you correctly identified as dangerous because leaving felt like admitting you were right, and being right felt like a luxury you hadn't earned. You make yourself small to avoid the confrontation that your perception demands. You know and you say nothing. You see and you look away. And then you are surprised when the thing you saw coming arrives. The truth does not care about your comfort. It only cares about accuracy. And the accurate statement is this: you have been complicit in your own blindfolding. This is not blame. This is diagnosis. And diagnosis is the beginning of the only thing that actually changes anything. What you know and do not act on owns you. Now the framework. The name thing you can use. Call it selective disclosure. It is the principle by which the hyperaware person stops treating their perception as a burden to be managed and starts treating it as a strategic resource to be deployed. Here is what it means in practice. You stop performing unawareness. The hyperaware person's default social strategy is to pretend they notice less than they do, to smooth things over, to allow the comfortable lie to stand because calling it out feels like an aggression. This strategy protects no one and costs you everything. It communicates to every person in every room that your perceptions can be safely ignored, that there are no consequences for performing in front of you, that you are a safe audience for dishonesty. You are not. Stop acting like one. You become the person who names things, not aggressively, not as confrontation, as simple, accurate, unadorned statement of what is present. I noticed this conversation shifted when I asked that question. This story changed between the first time you told it and now. You said one thing and did another, and I am curious which one is true. No heat, no accusation, just the observation, delivered with the same tone you would use to note the weather. This is not aggression. This is the appropriate use of the tool you were given. You control the timing of your knowledge. This is the most important component, and the one most hyperaware people never learn. You do not reveal what you know when you know it. You reveal it when revelation serves you. The person who shows their hand immediately has no hand. The person who waits, who continues gathering information, who speaks at the moment of maximum strategic clarity. That person is not reacting to the situation. They are shaping it. Patience is not passivity. Patience is pressure applied over time. You stop seeking validation and start seeking calibration. There is a difference. Validation is asking someone to confirm that you are right. Calibration is asking someone to tell you specifically where your perception might be incomplete. Validation keeps you in the same loop. Calibration sharpens the instrument. One person who will tell you hard truths is worth more than 100 who will agree with you. You treat your exhaustion as data. The depth of your fatigue in a given environment is accurate information about the psychological cost of that environment. You are not tired because you are weak. You are tired because you are in the wrong room, with the wrong people, playing a role that requires constant surveillance of threats that should not be there. Your exhaustion is your perception telling you something you already know. Listen to it. Perception without strategy is just suffering with better resolution. Now we go deeper, because what we have covered so far is the first layer. There are others. There is a version of the hyperaware person that most people never become, not because they lack the capacity, but because becoming it requires confronting something that is much more frightening than any external threat. When the hyperaware person has been working within the selective disclosure framework long enough, something shifts. The defensive posture begins to dissolve. The continuous scanning starts to have gaps in it. Intentional gaps, chosen gaps, moments of deliberate non-engagement. And in those gaps, something else emerges. Precision. The person who spent years absorbing the mechanics of manipulation, who studied every tactic from the inside, who cataloged thousands of hours of human behavior at its most calculated and most concealed. That person now understands the architecture of influence with a depth that most people never approach. Not theoretically, practically, in the body, in the pattern. They know which emotional frequencies generate which responses. They know how to construct a narrative so that its conclusion feels like the listener's own idea. They know how silence functions differently in different contexts. When it creates anxiety, when it creates respect, when it creates uncertainty that the other person will rush to fill in exactly the direction you have predicted. They know how to be the least reactive person in a high-tension situation, and they know that the least reactive person always wins. This is not manipulation in the service of harm. It is the mastery of the same tools that were used against you, now held by someone who understands their weight and their cost. The difference between a weapon and a tool is the intention of the person holding it. You now know the intention of the person holding it. Here is the more disturbing layer, and this one you are less prepared to hear. The hyper-aware person, once they stop operating from fear, does not become merely effective. They become, in specific contexts, genuinely dangerous. Not in the crude sense, in the precise sense. They are dangerous the way a surgeon is dangerous, not despite their precision, but because of it. They can find the structural weakness in any dynamic and apply exactly the right pressure to exactly the right point at exactly the right moment. They do not need volume. They do not need aggression. They need only clarity, patience, and the willingness to wait. And the question Nietzsche was asking, the one he embedded in that warning about the abyss, is not whether you have this capability. You do. The question is what you are willing to become in the using of it. Because the abyss does gaze back. Extended immersion in the mechanics of human darkness changes you. The cynicism calcifies. The detachment that was once a tool becomes a personality. The analytical distance that was once protective becomes the permanent state. And the person who once felt everything too deeply begins, slowly, to feel almost nothing. They become excellent. They become untouchable. And they become, in some essential way, diminished. This is the tax the abyss charges for the knowledge it gives you. It takes something warm and replaces it with something accurate. Most people do not notice the trade until the trade is complete. The price of the abyss is always paid in the currency of who you were before you looked. Now the hardest part, the part no one who is selling you a self-improvement framework will say, you have to kill something. Not metaphorically, not in the soft Instagram sense of letting go of your old self. An actual death, a deliberate chosen ending of a specific mechanism that has been running your life. The mechanism is this, the belief that your safety depends on your awareness. That belief was once true. In the original environment that built your hypervigilance, your perception was the thing that stood between you and genuine harm. It was not paranoia then. It was survival, and your nervous system encoded it as the fundamental law of your existence. See everything, miss nothing. Because missing something has consequences you cannot afford. That law is now false. The environment changed, you did not. And the part of you that insists on keeping it, the part that says, I cannot afford to stop scanning, I cannot afford to trust, I cannot afford to be wrong, that part is not protecting you. It is consuming you. It is running on a threat that no longer exists, burning resources that you need for the life that is actually in front of you, keeping you in a posture of defense against an enemy that is no longer in the room. Killing it does not mean becoming naive. Naive is the opposite error. Naive people trust everything and see nothing. You will never be naive. Your nervous system will not allow it. That is not the risk. The risk is the other direction. The risk is that you hold on to the mechanism past its usefulness, past its relevance, past the point at which it is doing anything except keeping you alone and exhausted and certain that you are too aware to ever be truly safe. The thing that kept you alive in the difficult place will keep you from being alive in the better one. Here is what killing it looks like in practice. It looks like choosing, in a specific moment, with a specific person, in a specific context that your perception has evaluated and cleared, to not scan, to be present instead of analytical, to receive what is being offered instead of cataloging it, to tolerate the uncertainty of not knowing everything about what is happening in this moment. It will feel like danger. It is not danger, it is unfamiliarity. Your nervous system does not know the difference between those two things. You do. And the choosing of one over the other, made repeatedly in small moments, over time, that is the death. That is the shift. That is the end of the version of you that was built for the war. and the beginning of the version of you that can exist after it. You cannot become who you are capable of being while you are still being who you had to be. Now the final layer. The one Nietzsche was pointing at when he wrote that sentence. The one that sits beneath all of it. You have been treating awareness as an identity, not just a trait, not just a skill, an identity. You are the one who sees. You are the one who knows. You are the one who cannot be fooled. It is how you explain yourself to yourself. It is how you justify the isolation, the exhaustion, the controlled distance you keep from everyone around you. It is the story you tell about why you are different, why connection is hard, why the world does not quite fit around you the way it seems to fit around others. And here is the dark truth underneath that story. You are afraid that if you stop scanning, stop analyzing, stop being the person who sees everything, you will not know who you are. That without the awareness as the organizing principle of your personality, there is nothing underneath it. That the awareness is not a thing you have. It is a thing you are. This is the final trap. And it is the most elegant one. Because the awareness itself built it. The pattern recognition that has served you so well turned inward, looked at your own psychological structure and concluded, the safest thing is to be irreplaceable. To be the seer, to make the seeing so central to your identity that losing it would feel like losing yourself. The abyss is not out there. The abyss is the story you built about yourself to survive the place you came from. You are not the awareness. You are the person who developed awareness in response to conditions that demanded it. Those are not the same thing. One is a permanent self. One is an adaptive strategy. You have been living as though they are identical. They are not. The work, the actual work, not the intellectual engagement with this idea, but the lived practice of it, is to find out who you are when you are not watching, when you are not cataloging, when you are not running the threat assessment, when you are simply present in a moment without the apparatus of perception standing between you and the experience of being alive. Most hyper-aware people never do this, not because they lack the courage, though it requires courage, but because they never receive a clear enough map of what they are actually navigating. They know something is wrong. They know the awareness is costing them. They cannot name the exact mechanism that needs to die. Now you can name it. Friedrich Nietzsche did not write that warning as a moral instruction. He wrote it as a description of a natural law. Gaze into the abyss long enough and it gazes back, not as punishment, but as consequence, as physics, as the simple, inevitable result of sustained immersion in darkness. You have been in the abyss. You know what it looks like. You know how it moves. You carry that knowledge in your body. You cannot unknow it, and you would not want to. Because the knowledge is real and the world contains real darkness, and your perception of it has protected you in ways you may never fully account for. But you can stop living inside it. You can stand at the edge instead of the bottom. You can look when looking serves you and look away when it does not. You can hold the capability without being held by it. That is not weakness. That is mastery. And mastery is the only destination worth moving toward. The aware person who never learned to rest built a perfect prison and called it vigilance. Do not be that person. If you recognized yourself in this, and you did, or you would not still be watching, then there is one thing to do before you leave this video. Do not think about this. Thinking about it is what you always do. Thinking about it is how you process without changing. Thinking gives the analytical mind something to work on that does not require the nervous system to actually do anything different. Instead, name one person in your current life whose behavior your perception has flagged and whose reality you have been accepting over your own. One person. One situation. One place where you have been overriding accurate data in exchange for comfort or social peace or the avoidance of conflict. Name it. Write it down if you have to. Because the naming is the beginning of the only action that matters. The decision to stop pretending you do not know what you know. The truth does not require your belief to function. It only requires your acknowledgement to set you free. If this changed something in how you see yourself, leave it in the comments. Not for my benefit. Because the act of stating it publicly is the first small death of the mechanism. Because saying it out loud is the first moment in which the scan stops and the real work begins. And if you are not subscribed, do it now. Not because this is the algorithm asking, because the next video continues where this one stopped, and you are not finished yet. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who finally stopped being afraid of what they already know.